Alright, what we're going to start with here are is a mousetrap. We're going to take mousetrap will go like this. I'm going to take the springs off here. Just pop it off. Should go pretty easy. And then it's not held any tension anymore. Once it's thinner one, and what we're going to want to do is we're going to take the skewer here, bamboo skewer, and we're going to attach it to this so that as it turns, it'll spin the skewer. And we're going to start with using about some wire here. Get about a 6-inch piece of wire. Oop, there she goes. And just going to go about halfway with it, fold it in half to start right in the middle, line it up like this, and just try and bind it to the one side nice and tight all the way up to the end, the full length of the mousetrap, and down at the bottom. And there's what we have there. That's bound pretty well. So when we put the spring back on here, what we'll have is we'll have an action like this, where we have not as much force to pull it and a larger distance so the cars can go longer. Alright, next thing I'm going to do is might tape that up a little bit, although it's probably going to be okay like that. If it's not too tight or if it moves, you can put some duct tape on it. Okay, our next step after getting the mousetrap done is to work on the axles, and the way we're going to do that is to use metal strapping here. It's just a nice size. You have two different potential axle sizes. Whatever you use for an axle, you can use metal. Like this is old tomato cage that I cut out. Could be a coat hanger or wooden skewer, depending on what size it's going to fit in. You can use either one, so it's pretty handy. The way we're going to do this is we need to make sure that the height off of here is the same on both sides, otherwise your car is going to be twisted. And the easiest way to do that is to figure out, okay, about how high do I want that, and I'm going to be, say, at this point here, so I'm going to bend it right here where there's a weak spot here, like that. So that'll be my one side. Okay, for my next side then, what I want to do is go to the next hole that's next larger. In other words, I can't go to this hole because it's going to be too short. You want these out further than the wood, because when your wheels are running, you don't want that to scrape against the wood. So the next hole that's a little bit larger, which would be right here, that's where I'm going to make my next bend. Small hole, and then I'm going to take some wire cutters and cut that here. Alright, so here's what we have. We got an axle here, and if we screw that down right in the middle, we should be pretty close to where we want to be, and that's what I'm going to do at this point. Alright, for the next step, what I'm going to do next is do the same thing for the front. Okay, there we go. I got the front done now. One thing I had to do was clip an extra piece off of this, if you can see what I'm talking about right here, so that I was lined up with the small hole being in the bottom. on this side when I start as here too, so that's just one little thing to watch. Alright, next we're going to talk about mounting the Mousetrap, and how we do that is this is going to be the back. Really, they're both the same at this point, can be either one. And when I mount it, I'm going to want to mount it kind of like this off to the side, so that this bar is kind of more towards the center. Doesn't have to be exactly the center, but a little bit closer is better, so it doesn't get hung up on the axle. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to pre-drill a hole here so I don't split it, because it's pretty thin. And I'll put one back here too, just to keep it sturdy. Clean this up. Alright, the next step in the process would be to put this down. I'm going to slap some glue down here, and we're going to line that up. There we go. Put in the screws. In the front. And in the back. Take the tension off there for a second. Line it up. Alright, that's going nowhere now. One thing when you do this, you want to make sure that when the tension's on here, that you don't have this thing turned around. And I'll show you what I'm saying. That's why I had the tension on there, so I'd make sure I didn't get it messed up. But you want to make sure that it's pulling away. This will be your back axle. You don't want to have that spun around, or you're going to have all kind of problems. So, alright. There we go. Next step then would be to start putting on the axles and attaching the tires. Alright, one thing I wanted to mention before we get to the axles is that when you anchor this to here, it can move a lot. The way to keep that from happening is to, and if you can see it here, take the end and just wrap it around up top here and the bottom, and wrap it around the bottom there once, and it'll make it a lot more secure. Alright, let's talk about the axles now. Go ahead and take your bamboo skewers and try and get one that's fairly straight. That one looks pretty good. That one's alright. What we're going to do is, at this point, let's get to the length that we need. What I'm going to be doing is the wheels we're going to be using are going to be attached to a eraser here, and that's going to actually hold the wheel on the axle. So we need about that much room in there. You can see that? I can't see it. They're about that long, so we need about an inch on either side, which will be about here. So I'll go ahead and do that. Score it a little bit. I got this junk old. Score it and bust it. Alright. Now, we might as well at this point sharpen those edges a little bit. And I just have a old school pencil sharpener here, and oops, get the right end. I'll just sharpen those points at a high angle so we can plop them on there. Just push them onto those erasers when we're done. On that side, and then the other side. Really, I try to do these as cheap as possible. The cost for everything here involved is about $1 a piece. Just buying stuff at the dollar store. I got about 20 kids that I do this for, so I try and keep stuff cheap. That's about the right length right there. Okay. So let's see, at this point, let's put the axles on. Okay. There's our axle. I got these erasers because they're circular. I mean, you could probably even use square erasers. You just need something that's going to be big enough to cover the hole on your CD. And to cover that, we're just going to duct tape it. You could use hot glue, but it might come loose. Anyway, with these kids that I teach, I've been doing it for about 10 years, and we always come up with something neat every week. Call it Frontiers Club. It's through church. Here we go. I'm going to try and get centered about there. Let's see, what do I want on the outside. This is going to be on the outside. The reason is you want the metal pushing against that plastic so there's less resistance than if you're putting it on the inside. It'll be rubbing against the eraser and it might slow it down. So I kind of want that on the outside, so let's go like that and center it about there, and good old duct tape will hold that pretty well. Alright.